Good afternoon, everyone. I am back. We do not have a verdict. I know I said I'd come back if we got one. We didn't get one, but we did have another juror question, and we're going to look at that here in just a second. I'm going to bring that up for you guys. They've already had it, but we're going to take a look at it together um, and watch this clock for a little bit. I have invited Butterfly up to join me. Miss Dolphin has an open invitation if she's feeling up to it as well. I'm going to be honest with you guys. It's a super rainy day in Florida again. I've got nothing else to do because everything here is done and I'm bored. So I can either hang out and talk to the guys who want to talk to me and troll around the YouTube streets and the Twitter. We can talk smack. We can read documents. We can do whatever we want, right? Let me pull up the feed. Let me see what we got here. Welcome, True Crime Butterfly. How are you, hun?
Hey, I'm good. How are you? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you just fine. Chat, you guys give us a check and let us know that our almost forgot my words again. Let us know that our audio is doing okay. I'm like, where am I? What happened?
Right.
Okay, getting focused here. So Butterfly and I were doing our usual, and she's like, "Hey, they're back in court." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm watching it now." So, did you catch that, Butterfly? We're going to take a look at it again, and in case for those who may have missed it, probably a lot of you guys were doing what we were doing and trolling the streets, looking for updates as well. So some of you may have seen it. What was your take on
Yeah.
that?
I was a little confused because I didn't see the whole thing
Okay.
because I was Andrea's live and she was going over the stuff that we went over this morning, and then all of a sudden they're in court. So I'm like, wait, is this from earlier? Or is this from now? Because I was putting my dinner together for later, but
Right.
so I didn't get to hear everything.
Okay. Let me check and make sure I got the right part queued up for us. One second, guys. Of course, now I'm having an issue finding it when it was completely queued up. Okay, this is it. And all she said so far is we received a question from the jurors, and she's about to read it, and then we'll replay it if we need to. It's an interesting question. They're getting close to making their decision, guys. So we're gonna hang out for a while in case they do. Don't you feel that like they are, Butterfly?
Yeah, I think so. It's just she's so wishy washy on everything, and
Oh my God, right? If they, it's like y'all get
if
all
they're
your
looking
questions.
to her for guidance and she's this way, yeah, I
Yeah,
would
she's
never
not.
want to serve on the jury again under her.
No, right? She's not giving much guidance. She's like, well, we can't
Hmm.
answer that. Like, well, who else are they supposed to ask if you can't answer it?
Exactly.
Do we go to the
The,
Supreme Court
the
next? Is that the next
what's
step?
the eight ball that you ask questions to?
Vixie, where are you? We got more questions you need to be asking that deck. Okay. Um, all right, guys. So, welcome in. Thanks for coming in and rejoining us. I appreciate you guys coming into our tiny little channel and hanging out with us in this community. We do appreciate it. So, like I said, they went to a lunch, they came back, and then they had another question. Or right, I think that's the order of how the events went. So let's
Yeah.
listen. Okay, let's listen in.
If we find not guilty on 2 charges but can't agree on 1 charge, is it a hung jury on all 3 charges or just 1 charge? I got some input from the defense at sidebar, essentially saying if we could just ignore it. We can't ignore it. To me, it's a theoretical question, and we don't answer theoretical questions. I tell the jurors that they're not to be concerned with the consequences of their verdict, and that's exactly what they're doing here. So I would propose just writing simply, this is not a question I can answer on this, and sending it back.
The defense position is not certainly not the position for it. I agree. We can't ignore your question. However, I think that it is apropos, given the timing of when that question came in, literally before the court had answered the other 3 note card questions. I think that it would be appropriate to send a quick note just asking them, given the fact that there's some clarity.
He just said that question came in before they ever answered the first 3 questions from this morning. Interesting.
Oh, wow.
Other questions, does this answer your question? In other words, can you proceed without any further input by the court regarding that second question?
So that made sense initially, but why ask them, do I really need to answer it, to then tell them I'm not answering it?
Because I think at some point, they need to know what the law is. It's a reporting question. In other words, I don't see it as theoretical, as the court indicated. I see it a little bit differently, which is what are our options? And the options are built in the law, not in theory. If they come back with a verdict on more than one count, but they're hung on a separate count, they are to report those 2 counts, whatever counts they came to a verdict on.
So that's for a later time,
For a later
right? So
time.
this is at this point.
Right.
It's premature, it's hypothetical, it's theoretical. I understand your point. I think I disagree with you at this point. It may be something later. The way the question's worded, if I find this, if we do this. I'll hear from the Commonwealth.
We agree it's consequence related. Your first suggestion, I think, is most appropriate, and we would endorse.
I'm surprised she didn't send it back to the jury and say word it differently. Did you hear what she just said? It's the wording.
For real.
Ma'am, they're jury. They're not attorneys before you. What the hell?
She always wants to kick, instead of being proactive, she wants to be reactive to everything.
Yeah,
And no, lady, this isn't your own life. This is a court of law.
preach it, ma'am. Goodness gracious, I think that just summed up this whole entire darn case, Butterfly. Damn, bringing the knowledge.
I'm going to do that at this time, Mr. Jackson. I'm not going to have a back and forth with them. I'm simply going to say, because it's true, it's the law, that this is not a question I can answer.
Well, I would strongly suggest.
I mean, you don't want to
some
answer.
other way. If that question continues to remain, then they're not going to ask that question. I don't think the court can say, or should say, I can't answer the question, because the court can answer that question. The court absolutely can answer it. I would simply say, this question is not before the court without further information, or something like that. Not the court can't answer that question, because if that question remains in their minds, we're going to end up in the exact same position that we were in last year.
There are other steps that can be taken to perhaps prevent that.
Whatever those steps are, I think the first step down the wrong path is to say, throw our hands up and say, well, we can't answer that question.
Look at her. She doesn't like what he's saying.
So I don't know if I want to put you in an uncomfortable position, Ms. Giannetti. I'm inclined to answer the question.
And what does she mean, I don't want to put you in an uncomfortable position, Ms. Giannetti? And then she's going to scold them in just a second for being a little bit late. And I thought,
But Yannetti wasn't talking. It was Jackson, wasn't it?
yeah. And I don't know what she's she's already mad at Yannetti because he was a little bit late this morning, and apparently they were 10 minutes late coming back for this, because she's about to go into that. And I'm like, are you kidding me? You're singling them out about being a few minutes late when you had a whole prosecutor stand before you and misrepresent evidence.
Exactly. And then he's telling her to her face what he thinks, which is,
Right.
preach it, Jackson. And she doesn't like it. She's shifting in her chair.
Yeah.
What do you need? That you got that vodka shakes already, lady?
Oh, good Lord.
In the way I stated.
Could we have 2 minutes to confer with counsel, Your Honor?
How about 1 minute? You guys are 10 minutes late.
We just need 1 minute. Thank you.
See? How about 1 minute? You guys were 10 minutes late, so I'll give you 1 minute. Well, don't y'all live in like a really busy area with traffic and stuff? I mean,
Like, lady, this isn't Family Feud. Come on. Lady's
Family.
life depends on it.
Exactly. And that is it right there, because not only did Karen Reed is sitting here now, but this is her second time sitting here. Should anybody be sitting here a second time?
Well, my answer is you're a dumbass for 100. The first answer. Top
Yeah.
answer.
I mean, I get that they couldn't get double jeopardy is why they're here again, but nobody should have to go through a trial twice. If they can't get it right the first time, there wasn't enough evidence or the jury, whatever happened
Or the
happened.
judge is a dumbass and can't
Yeah. I
can't
mean,
produce.
we have the appeals process for all of that, right? As long as the objections and everything's on the record, we have appeals process. But
Very slight-
put somebody through this
to the
twice.
court's language. I don't have a
Mhm.
objection to the court's language. That if we not answer the question this time, I would simply ask that the court answer the question as you suggested just now in open court. It's premature to address this question at this time.
No, what do you say, Mr. Brennan? My response was, this is not a question I can answer, for the reasons I stated. It's theoretical, and we tell jurors that they cannot be concerned with the consequences of their verdict, and that's exactly what you would be asking me to endorse. What's the Commonwealth's position on the proposed?
I agree with your first suggestion.
Yeah. I'm going to send it in like this. Your objection's noted.
Your Honor, if I could make my record a little bit clearer, the court's indicating that it doesn't answer questions about the consequences of the juror's verdict. That would be punishment. Of course you can't answer a question like that. This is not the consequences of the verdict, it's how do they report a verdict. So I think saying, I can't answer this, is sending a false message to the jury. If the court would simply indicate, this is not appropriate for me to address at this time, that assuages all concerns. Certainly assuages our concerns, and it protects Ms. Reed's rights. I think that...
Well, I think what I could add is this is a theoretical question, not a question I can answer. That does the same thing. Is there an objection? I understand, Mr. Jackson.
Add the clause at this time.
Is there an objection to me putting this is a theoretical question, not a question I can answer?
No objection.
So theoretical question. So what if they come back and say, well, you know what? It's no longer theoretical, ma'am. We're asking the legit question this time. Word it differently.
Well, the court to finish writing, but at this point, that is over our objection.
I understand.
I just want to make sure the record is absolutely clear. That's over our objection. I don't think that's an appropriate answer to a very, very clear question that could be answered in an innocuous way that does not affect Ms. Reed's rights. I
Okay.
think this way it does.
Okay, it was a clear question that the defense first told me to ignore. So,
Oh,
is that.
damn.
All right, we are all set, so let's send this in.
I hate how she does that. She does
No.
all set. No, you're not all set, bitch.
God. Now I'm going to throw your words right back in your face and use them at you, I mean, because the defense did tell her in the beginning, we'll just ignore that. But then, yeah, they shouldn't have done that. They should have just said, nope, get it on the record. We object from when come up with a reason. But I understand their reasoning that they actually do have. They should have just come out of the gate with it, because then she couldn't have thrown that back in their face a second ago later, right?
Right.
What in the world is she doing? He is. I agree, Rachel. He's correct. And this question, no, the way he said it was that this last question came in after the first three came in, but the first three hadn't been answered yet by the court. They were still deciding that when I guess this fourth question came in on them. That's why we're hearing about it after the first three. It came in that order from what I'm understanding. But either way, they've got 4 questions now that they've had to come out and ask for clarification on. In this last one, she doesn't want to give them any real direction on that. Like, who was it? Someone is she feeling like Sejoy says, I don't think Bev is liking the temperature from the direction the jury may be leaning, right? You think she's feeling it?
Well, just the way she words things sometimes, like, okay, so if Hank doesn't object to it or have any sort of opinion on it, what don't you think that it should be this, and this? That's for him to decide. Why the hell is she asking him? I don't understand that.
Well, I have my thoughts and theories on why she is so keen to let Hank have his way in the courtroom, right? I mean, I don't know. But if you take a look.
I'm just saying that it's not normal. Like,
no, it isn't normal, because
he's an experienced attorney. He's not Lori Daybell over there not knowing what the hell she's doing.
Well, here's the thing. I have to wonder about there's certain things that go down in that area, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hank Brennan knows about them well. His
Right.
One of his big high profile defense cases talks about just that. So you have to wonder, I mean, come on, my imagination can run super wild right at the moment. How many
Right.
people's pockets are being lined?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to
But
say
she
from the
makes it
top
so
down,
blatant.
right, from the government down. I mean, seriously, if the mob boss that was on the run for 16 years, Brennan ends up defending the guy, trying to
Mm-hmm.
anyway. But the mob boss's brother, while he's on the lam, he's sitting pretty in the Senate the whole time. Well, not the Senate, but in the Massachusetts House, right?
Right.
And I'm thinking, well, dang. And then he finally didn't catch flack for all that until many, 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 many years later. It's like, dude, your brother is like on the lam for forever now in a day, and here you are.
Wow.
Yeah. So you have to
Mm.
wonder how far down from the top then it goes down. And then you need somebody at every level of the government, right down to your beat cops.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying that's what's happening here,
Participating.
but it's not a far stretch to think that it's not.
That's what I was gonna say. It's happened before, so why wouldn't it now happen again?
In the case where Brennan defended the mob boss,
Mm-hmm.
that whole investigation uncovered 2 FBI agents in Massachusetts who were being paid off by the mob.
Yeah.
So if it can reach the federal level,
But we're conspiracy theorists. Yeah, right.
right? We're just conspiracy theorists. We don't know what we're talking about.
Right.
Shh, don't say those words out
Mm.
loud. You know, I don't like to be like, I want it to be real if I'm gonna talk about it. Not just
Mm-hmm.
conspiracy, but dang, y'all are the
Right.
ones that I didn't write the news. You guys did all that. So it's not a far stretch. And it's like, why would she continue to go out on a limb for that guy or let him? The biggest thing that got me is when he misrepresented the shirt in court about road rash
Mm-hmm.
on the back when it was really cuttings from their own CSI.
And
He's
not
the
even a
one,
slap on the hand. Not even that.
no, he's going to stand up there and say, well, I think the remedy should be,
But
or
yet you admonish the defense for being late.
the defense should be filing motions as to what they feel like the remedy should have been
Mm-hmm.
for you misrepresenting evidence in an open courtroom in front of the jury. I
Yep.
mean, shady.
And nothing said about it. And I
No,
just wonder, like when she says she's gonna address something and then they come out in open court and she doesn't even say what she said she was gonna say. Like
no,
how can you not, and then not even an opportunity to confront her about it in front of the jury? Like, no, that's not what we agreed to. I object.
right. And for her to even then come out and say, oh, and by the way, the testimony you heard a few minutes ago about that shirt, just ignore that whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just ignore it.
Yep.
They're going to be like,
Meanwhile,
well,
they're giving
well,
whole speeches and she
are they
doesn't.
are they left
Just-
scratching their heads, right? I
Mhm.
mean, are they literally left scratching their heads wondering what in the world is happening here? And how
Right.
much, like I said, how much do the impression that the jury, I mean, does the judge and the attorneys have on the jury to where that affects their decision process? I mean, it
Right.
probably does account a little bit. Would you take into consideration? You're like, well, that guy was a real, he was a real tool out there, mean to everybody. Would you consider that? I mean, because you got to
Right.
weigh their credibility, right?
Mhm.
Who came across as the more credible attorney here?
Not just that, but the judge, who is the head of everything. I mean, she's like the referee, but she should still be unbiased. And then
Her
she should
job
have
is to be
more
unbiased,
wisdom
right?
in her job, right?
Mhm.
More direction for the jury because they're there doing their job. Well, why aren't you doing yours? Is what my question would be as a juror. Like, if
Yeah.
I can't look to you for guidance, then why am I even here? Then
Exactly.
she's not guilty in my eyes because there's not enough to tell me that she is.
Well, if you sat there for 30 days watching this judge preside over this case and you see her chaotic courtroom and
It should show.
all the things for a month, and then you're asking questions, she's like, I'm not going to answer that, or I'm going to give you these little smiles and vague instructions.
For real.
No, it's like, take it
Baby
more
talk.
seriously. Yeah, yeah, take it a little and be neutral. That is the job of the judge, is to
Yep.
be neutral to both sides, right?
Mhm.
Um, it's like if Idaho came back and found Koberger innocent, guys, it's not gonna affect me to the point where I'm gonna have a meltdown and I'm gonna talk about it for 2 or 3 years going and wait for his next trial.
Right.
The minute
Because at
Casey
the first,
Anthony's guilty verdict came down, I put that case down. I didn't
yeah.
carry it for years with me and let it eat me alive and all the things, because I knew halfway through what was going to happen. And I followed
Well,
that
I mean,
case forever, for years. Like it
right.
seemed like we were with Casey Anthony for years before she went to trial, but it was really just 2 years. But it was a
Right.
whole lot. It was a lot of a lot of Casey Anthony fucking everywhere. But yeah,
Hmm.
I wouldn't have agreed with the second trial, right? I don't You didn't get enough evidence the first time, why go at it again? I feel the same way here. I'm gonna feel the
Yeah.
same way in Koberger. If you didn't get it right the first time after 3 years, come on, man, you just might as well give it up. I don't know what you could do
I
different
mean,
next time.
if you don't have a judge that's fair and actually, like, for example, she shuts down the defense but gives no explanation. Just, I'm not ruling on that, or no.
Well, if they
Like,
hadn't
it makes
declared
me
it a
question the whole
mistrial,
case.
right? Are we only here because it was declared a mistrial first time around? Now, a
Hmm.
mistrial, I can see redoing a trial based on a mistrial if you have actual mistrial evidence and there was real, and that's why we're here now with Karen Reed. And there was obvious problems if it came down to jury instructions. Like
But
you
she was
would
part of the
think,
problem. That's the thing.
right? You would
Exactly.
think she would be doing everything in her power to get it right this time, right?
Yeah, but you don't see that. You see her lots of what's the word I'm looking for? Just kicking things down the road, and I don't want to deal with it right now. I'll deal with it if it becomes a problem. No, like,
Well,
they're asking for a reason. Like, give them
yeah,
your honest guidance and answer, not just whatever you think.
yeah.
Stupid.
Um, Rachel, the only problem I have, well, that shouldn't really, if you think about it, should that even be a question for them? Because she's not accused of mowing him down after she got back to his house, right? And if she did drink, then would that have elevated her alcohol level? Which, that is to your point, I think. Um, but they shouldn't really even consider it. I mean, Higgins went home and drank. Of course, he didn't get accused of doing anything other than being.
Well, that's the
Well,
thing too.
we accused him of being a jackass, but I think the prosecution tried to accuse him of being a good guy. But
Well, he
no
said
bueno.
12:45, right? So
What was
what he said, the question was what, 12:45 or 5 something, and he said
Yeah,
12:45.
and that
So
that
she
goes against
wasn't
Aperture,
there. Yeah,
right?
exactly. That's what I was saying. Is that she wasn't even there at the time that they're claiming that she hit him.
No,
So
exactly, and that is odd that he would say it like that versus capturing the exact time that Aperture claims that occurred, which is 12:31.38.
mhm.
That's not what he
So that's
said.
after
Again,
the fact. 5:15 is way after.
well, and that
Like,
also is after she connects to John's Wi-Fi.
mhm.
Because
But
by 12,
she's at home.
yeah, by
So what if she drank
12:45,
some more?
she's
You
already
can't
at
prove. Yeah, she's not driving at that point.
she's already back at John's touching the Wi-Fi by the time Hank says she's standing, out there in the yard
Hmm.
doing that. So he don't know. And and they wanted to know that first question, if they consider it an OUI, do they consider it to be, like Rachel says, is it 12:30-ish, or are they talking 6:30-ish in the morning, or whatever time it was the blood test was taken? I don't see how
They
you could
asked
charge her
Hank,
with
and
DUI the next
he said
morning.
12:45. Like, they
Yeah.
asked
Well,
both
yeah, he want
times which
well,
one. Yeah.
okay, because what Hank is saying, the jury should base it on, if they're gonna charge her with an OUI, charge her at the time of, I say, the time this accident occurred, which was the 12 whatever number he spit out. But the jury was like, "Well, can we charge her with OUI at 12:30 or 6, or 6:30 stuff. Y'all get that out of your brains. It doesn't matter.
And then didn't they say it wasn't even in the indictment?
The
Isn't
time
that
of
what Ben
the
said?
time of
Yeah.
death or time of accident wasn't named in the indictment, because a lot of times, the time this incident occurred, coordinates where bodies were found, things like that, are
Mhm.
usually listed in indictments, or an actual location, times, whatever it may be. And apparently, there was nothing listed as far as Karen's
So
indictment goes.
is that a Massachusetts thing that you can charge someone on an OUI based off of a video that you saw them drinking, but you have no actual evidence
Well, they're
of
gonna
what their
I
limit
think,
was at the time?
yeah, I think, I don't know
Wow.
how. Okay, in this case, it appears that if they
There's a whole
believe,
bunch of people drinking on that video, so they didn't take blood samples of everybody on that video.
no, because
So
they
they
didn't
should all be
accuse it,
charged.
because they didn't accuse everybody in the video of running over a man and leaving him in the snow. They should
No,
have.
but they were all
I mean,
OUI.
I get
I
what you're
mean, I'm
saying.
saying if you get, yeah, they're going to be
They,
that technical about it. Be that
everybody that was
technical
in the
about it.
video, almost, okay, everybody who ended up back at the house was in the video drinking. Everybody who ended
Mm-hmm.
up back at the house was also drinking, but none of them were charged with running
Right.
over the man in the front yard. So of course, if I'm the jury, I'm not even considering the OUI.
Mm-mm.
But
No.
but if you have a juror who is considering
Right.
it, that they believe he was hit by a car. So
That's
now they
crazy.
got to consider, was she literally DUI? Was it manslaughter? Was it involuntary manslaughter? Florida, we have DUI manslaughter and we have involuntary manslaughter. You kill a
Mm-hmm.
person in a car accident that's labeled an accident, that's involuntary manslaughter.
Yeah. It's just my common sense doesn't connect
Mm-mm.
the fact that just because you saw me taking drinks on a video, you don't have proof of
It,
what my
well,
level was at the
well,
time.
no, there's no proof of what her level
Right.
was. That's why I wouldn't even consider it.
Mm-hmm.
But they're also consider. Now think about what they asked, all in the same breath. Were the videos evidence? What videos?
Mm-hmm.
Which clips are you talking about? Where Karen's talking about herself taking another
Right.
shot and pouring it into her existing drink? Is that the video clips we're concerned about? Because we're already
Mm-hmm.
asking about, DUI at midnight or 6 a.m.
Right.
So what are they really I think that it might be part of what they're really considering right now is,
Mm-hmm.
was she really intoxicated? Which then they have to be considering that a freaking vehicle accident even occurred.
Right.
Or are they trying to use that to weed out that thought? It's hard to damn well
Yeah.
gauge, isn't it?
Exactly.
It's so hard to gauge, guys.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, trying to be the mind reader of jurors is not, it's
Mm-mm.
exhausting. It's like, oh,
Yeah. It
you
takes too
think
much energy.
you think you have a lot of the good questions and that they're going to ask, and then when you hear their questions, you're wondering why they're asking that, and then what led to that question. Now, what does that answer lead to?
I
Oh
just I just
gosh.
wonder, are there so many options? Is she trying to confuse them on purpose? Like, why so many options? It's just crazy.
I think the jury knows that she was drinking that night. Shit. I mean, it's on video. She says it
Mhm.
herself. She never denies one time that she wasn't drinking. The jury's
Right.
fully aware that she was, but
Mhm.
nothing indicates erratic driving anywhere except
Right.
this odd
You still
backing
have to
up.
have that proof that what
Mm-mm.
what that she was at that level that's against the law at
Yeah,
the time. You know
that's
what I mean?
exactly the point. Because then you
Mhm.
got the point eight, right? So they got to
Mhm.
know did it meet OUI standards to even be intoxicated at the
Mhm.
time of the accident. And probably, I mean, but like I said, just because you can put the same two people side by side, consume the same amount of alcohol, you're probably going to get a
Right.
different intoxication level and reading.
Mhm.
Even on a blood alcohol test, you're probably going to get a different reading on different
Yeah.
people. Um,
And even though she's tiny, her tolerance, because she's used to it, maybe has been drinking for, so long,
Right.
that
And
maybe she holds her liquor better than someone who is a
oh,
lightweight and hasn't been drinking that long
I'm
at
sure
that
she
same
does.
size.
I am sure she does. Yeah. I'm a petite person. I'm not really big. I think a lot, I can I don't I metabolize things quickly, right? It
Right.
doesn't take much for me to get things metabolized and out of my system. Pretty good at doing that. But yeah, I think you can't I've said it all along. The test wasn't taken at the time of the alleged accident, so I don't understand why the level of intoxication according to the testimony would even matter. That was a long, boring day of back and forth about how you calculate backwards and you get this and that and this. We had to go to math class and biology class and all kinds of
Hmm.
class that day. And it was like, man, we get it. I mean, I was so over all that testimony because it's still, my mind went right back to, well, at the time of the accident, there was no blood test drawn. It
Right.
literally waited over 6 hours to test this woman. So
Yeah.
how can you gauge, like you say, how can you even gauge her level of intoxication, especially on a scale that would make it legally an OUI?
I'm surprised they didn't try and just have that tossed out. I don't remember hearing anything that they tried based off of. I mean, that's not logical
You know,
testing.
they
You know
may
what I mean?
have. I'd have to go like revisit Sleuthy's spreadsheet, even to and look at some of the old documents, right, that were in the case. I have no idea how many motions the defense tried to file in this case before trial because I wasn't watching and paying attention, like I
Yeah.
do with most of the cases. Um,
And I
the
wouldn't doubt that she would have like not gone in their favor anyway, but I'm just wondering if they even tried.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a good question. They probably did. I mean, because you want to do all that if you're a defense. Look, but there's DUI attorneys out there. That's all they do is fight
Hmm.
DUIs. So there's a
Right.
lot of tools in their bag, and normal filings they would file. You know what I mean, for
Right.
things like that. So you would think they probably did try. I don't know. I mean, you think they did. Um,
I would hope so.
Yeah, right. Forrest, he says, little tiny places, there's not much to do but go to the bar. That's so true. I think a lot of the people involved were somewhat intoxicated a high percentage of the time. Yes, they were. And then you can
Hmm.
look at the text exchange between Higgins and Karen, just between the two of them. They
Right.
talked about drinking a lot, right? Um, Karen and John obviously drank a lot. I think if anything, she might learn that, maybe I shouldn't drink so much. Things happen.
Right.
Things get sideways real quick. Never again. I'll just stay at the house
Hmm.
next time I want to get my drink on. But yeah, there's a lot of people who drink. But then again, is that that little town in Canton, is that everywhere USA? Because I feel like it probably is.
Hmm. And you
Oh,
would think
yeah.
that since the laws are so harsh, that it wouldn't be as prevalent. Like it wouldn't be, especially with you see cops drinking and driving, which we have proof of that night. But
Well,
okay,
because
so
alcohol is so accepted. You
yeah.
know, there was a time it wasn't. Prohibition and all that came along, and they look what happened. People
Hmm.
flipped out. People absolutely flipped out to get their alcohol. Speakeasies popped up everywhere. Let's go drink in secret and all the things. People making their own whiskey in this country for years. Um, it's very accepted. So it's hard for the people who drink every day and hard to go out and tell, well, my buddy's bad because he drinks every day. Well, go look in the mirror because you probably do too. Um,
Right.
there's just a lot of it. There's responsible drinking. There's irresponsible drinking. There's functionable
Hmm.
alcoholics, and we have those that can't function at all. You got some that can't function without that drink in the morning, and then they're fine all day. Some people can function through life just fine and never have a problem with it. Um,
Yeah. My
Others,
dad was a functioning alcoholic, and he
yes.
worked
my,
and then came home and drank all the, the rest of the night.
yeah,
So,
my stepdad was as well. I mean, like he would literally get the shake if he didn't get a beer. But he was normal. He never was mean or he never
hmm
well, he didn't drink and drive because he did lose his license, but I'm
yeah,
talking many, 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 many years before he didn't drive the whole time.
right.
I mean, for the most, he was my stepdad for nearly 30 years, but he did not drive. So it was, no, we're not going to let that happen. My mother would have had look, my mom didn't play. If you called her and you were just involved in an accident where you were drinking, you better pray they come and take you away before mama got there.
Right?
I'm not even joking. I'd be like, please take me to jail right now. You have no
That's,
idea what's
that's
coming.
how I told my kids.
Yeah,
I better not catch you.
you have no idea. Take me to prison, that'd be better
Right?
at this point. Yeah, so I mean, there's, it is what it is. There's a lot of drinkers in that town, obviously. But it still doesn't, I don't think, apply to that night. I mean, it does if they feel like she ran him over. Now, here's the thing. If they believe an accident occurred and they believe she was intoxicated, do they believe she hit him and didn't realize it and drove away? Because then you also have video clips of her calling his phone once she returns to his house, screaming at him on voice messages.
Yeah.
So are they saying, okay, well, you know what? I'm not convinced an accident didn't happen, and maybe she was intoxicated, and maybe she hit him and didn't realize it, and there we are. It's so freaking hard to figure out what they're thinking.
Yeah. I just feel like they just tried to make the evidence fit their narrative of what they wanted to charge them.
Commonwealth.
hmm
Why did they feel the need to have to push so hard? Even if you were trying to save the soul of your buddy cop in that house and
Yeah.
you wanted it to go away quietly, when you just charge her with simple manslaughter, and I hate to say simple, but compared
Yeah.
to what you charged her with, when you charged her with the easiest thing to get her with, if that's what your goal was, when in that process of the investigation in that first 24 hours, did they decide she did something intentionally? Was it because who was the first person to utter the words, she said she hit him?
We all know who.
Who told the cops that? Who decided, you know what? Seriously, did she say it like that? Well, yeah. Then they go watch a bunch of videos and and listen to a bunch of phone calls and what? How did y'all
Yeah.
get there? So how I don't understand, girl, how they got there. Even if I became aware those statements were made, because they didn't charge her right away, did they?
I don't
I
think
can't.
so.
I don't think
I
they
can't
did.
remember.
I think it was a couple of days. Well, actually, I
Yeah.
could be wrong. Like a month. I don't
Well,
know. And it wasn't.
wasn't she on that? Was she on the hold?
Um. Here.
Medical hold when her
No.
parents.
Oh yeah. I don't. Not that. That didn't last long. I don't think.
Oh, okay.
I don't think it
I
was
don't
more
know
than
if it was a
24 hours.
24 or 72 or I can
Oh wait.
remember.
Yeah. Florida has rules on it as far as how long they can hold you and things like that. Especially on that type of hold. It's called Baker
Mm-hmm.
Act in Florida. Okay, here we go. Because she was charged by indictment and then arrested, right? Okay, Karen Reed was initially charged on June 10th after a Norfolk grand jury indicted her on charges of second-degree murder, manslaughter while operating under the influence of alcohol, leaving the scene of personal injury and death. These charges stemmed from the death of her boyfriend, Boston cop John O'Keefe. They didn't charge her with DUI till later. Odd. What, when the blood tests came back from the...
A year later? No, I don't know.
And why were they nosing around what her blood tests were if they didn't order the blood test?
Exactly. I think the blood test, was it a blood test or was it a urine test first?
I bet I don't
I
remember.
honestly can't
I know
remember.
they testified to a blood test in court, and I think they
Right.
might have testified to something about urine, but they was focused on the damn blood test. So,
Mm,
it was
that's
ordered
not.
there at the hospital, but I don't remember the exact testimony on that.
Yeah, I'd
And I
have to go
was
back
looking
and
for
look.
when she was charged, though. I got the date now. She was arrested February 2nd. So this was what, January 29th when the accident occurred, or alleged 28th going
Yeah,
into the
so what
20th.
if it is? Yeah. Yep.
So 31 days in January, right? I'm sitting here going
Yeah.
30
Yeah.
days has September, April, June, and November. Oh my gosh. Calendars, I swear. I think I learned that like what, first grade or something. Um, it's this
Did
a
you see
couple
the
of days.
video I posted with last night about what's his name that was supposed to testify and didn't testify?
Where did you post that
I,
at?
I posted in Discord yesterday.
To general chat?
Uh-huh.
It was somebody in the case that was supposed to testify.
Yeah.
Oh,
What's his name?
Michael Easter.
Yes, 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 yes.
Okay, hang on. Let me
It was
link.
interesting. It was interesting because he gave his opinion as much as he could about like the case, not
And
everything.
who is he?
They were gonna bring him in as the
Oh
was it
wait,
the Bowden thing?
he was on the witness or defense
Yeah.
witness list, right? Okay,
Uh
hang
huh.
on. I saved the video. Blood test, the standard test of someone being hospitalized. Yeah, but it was talked about in the testimony as to why the damn thing was even conducted. Update: jury just in on Megan Jackson trial in South Carolina, found guilty of red rum. I got a notification somebody's verdict and was in Forest. Thank you. They deliberated 2 hours and 20 minutes. I didn't watch a lot of that stuff either on that trial because I was streaming all day, Karen Reed and all.
Yeah, I never. When I saw it, I was like, "Who?" I must have missed that one because I don't know anything about it.
I knew it was in the news and people were covering it. I just didn't have the capacity to like.
Yeah,
So Lori, between this
my brain was probably fried at that point.
girl, between Karen Reed and Lori Vallow, come on, we've been
Yeah.
consumed for quite a while.
Yep.
Like totally by those two cases.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this was on Justice Served TV that what Butterfly was talking about, guys. Let me try to find where I guess he's like the first guest. Okay.
Yeah, he's the only one on there.
Oh, it's a clip of that. Okay. So I was watching them earlier before we came back live. I was watching them. There is their link in chat. Let me pull up the screen. So this was supposed to be a defense. What was he a witness? What kind of expert was he? Do you know right offhand? I can't remember the list.
I think when they were discussing the Bowden to allow him to
Okay. I guess they'll talk about that.
assess the
Bowden
investigation.
defense?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Which is like the bad investigation stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
We looked that up when we heard that brought up. We were like, what is this? And so what that pertained to was evidence of a bad investigation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the defense had planned to bring him on to talk about that in front of the jurors, but ended up not bringing the guy on. So let's take a look at this. A quick update. So the verdict clock is still running at 13 hours, 26 minutes, and 18 seconds. And we'll keep an eye on it. And let's play this. And like I said, the link is there in chat if you guys want to go check them out. They're pretty cool over there. And it's so funny because Linda was representing Phil Spector when Alan Jackson was the prosecutor.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. Okay, here we go.
Where are you?
Okay.
Without further ado, there he is, Michael Easter, Thank you, sir, for joining. We know that you're at a secret location. You're on vacation, in fact, and we appreciate you taking the time to join us. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Thanks for having me, by the way.
You bet. I think our people are dying to know what the jury did not hear. Obviously, you were hired by the defense. So tell us first, I don't want this to sound like a direct examination of your testimony they didn't hear, but just give us a sense of what you looked at. What did you review? And then we'll talk about your opinions.
Yeah, absolutely. I think maybe some foundational aspect would be, originally I wasn't
They told Sleuthy, you talking about Sleuthy Goosey or that Sleuthy? Yeah, they've said people they don't mind, and we did. I said this is where this came from, and we have the link in chat for this channel. And like I said, I was over there for a little while this morning in between our lives here and listened in. We have actually used footage here before with Michael. He's driven past the home at Fairview, remember, and we followed the route back to John's house. That was all Michael's work there. So yeah, this is a cool channel. You guys go check them out for sure.
Yeah, it's a great interview.
asked to look at the investigation from this perspective. Originally, I was asked to look at it from my more kind of natural expertise, which is the historical cell phone records and other education records. And that's where Attorney Jackson reached out to me originally. And as part of that, I've testified as an expert in over 200 trials, both federal and state. Clearly, I'm now retired and I do stuff privately. But when I started interacting with Alan on the case, I started asking questions that I would naturally ask about the investigation. How do we look at the phone records? How did the government look at the phone records?
The video's frozen. Am I frozen?
No, it was good now. It was for a minute, but it's
Oh,
fine.
okay.
How do we incorporate them into the investigation and the defense case in chief? Where does the evidence put this? And as I asked more questions were not answered. And simple questions about, well, whose phone records are we looking at? Where's the victim's phone records? Where are the other suspect phone records? None of these things existed. And as the conversation sort of evolved, Alan's like, Mike, would you mind just looking at the evidence from your investigative perspective? And for that, I spent over 20 years with the FBI as an investigator. I was a law enforcement officer prior to that, and formerly a Marine officer as well. And as he asked, I said, you know what, I'd love to look at the case. Can I get access to the discovery? And so at that point, I looked at the discovery material provided by the Commonwealth, not only with the idea of looking at the phone records clearly, which was the initial aspect, but as a fellow investigator, what would I have done? How would I have looked at this case? And what are some logical steps that I would have taken along the way? And did those logical steps take place? And maybe I'll add to that last aspect was, in that review, my focus wasn't just on what evidence they collected or didn't collect in those steps, but what is the Massachusetts State Police policy? What does it say they should have done? And that policy guide is actually online. And I looked at that and made a comparative assessment of what did the Massachusetts State Police do? Is that the best practice? And is it consistent or inconsistent with their own policy guide? And then I drafted a report and provided that to the court. And I think you mentioned it, and maybe somewhat now, Mr. Jackson's "do it" comment had made it to the interweb. So yeah, that's maybe start there for you. And I don't know if that answers questions or creates more, but
I didn't realize that that's how it evolved. You know, I thought it was from the start. You know, let's look at this investigation. I've looked at your CV, so I did know that it was cell phone and that kind of data intensive, right?
Right.
So, Mr. Easter, can you tell this jury what your ultimate opinion is as to how the investigation was carried out in this case?
Yeah, I can. Well, maybe the jury's not listening, hopefully, but at least the people on your channel. So for the Bureau, I also was an instructor, and one of the things
Interesting that he was asked to look at the phone data stuff first, and then did nothing come of it. That's interesting.
always teach is process. Have a process to dissect the problem. And when I looked at this, I really came up with three kind of words to sort of encapsulate the investigation or the lack thereof. And the first one was, I found that the investigation was incomplete. And incomplete in the logical steps you would take to determine whether Karen Read was the suspect or other people were the suspect. Not following logical investigative steps to collect evidence, to preserve evidence correct. We can always look back to the crime scene. But even beyond that, as the case migrated throughout that day, and how quickly and even prematurely they identified Karen Read as the sole suspect. So the first word is incomplete. Incomplete investigations in turn birth out this next word, which I think of as an easy way to look at it would be inconsistencies. And maybe I'll stick with I's. Is that an incomplete investigation creates inconsistencies, and those inconsistencies can show up in time typically, and you saw it in this case. This case was riddled with timeline issues, and that's because they never completed proper investigative steps to collect CCTV along likely routes of travel to and from, which they should have done. They should have traced those things. You saw in the testimony of, I think Walter tried to show some Google Maps, which is a great technique. I use it, which is use routes that the phone or the person could have taken, and then tracing those routes for CCTV, whether those are Ring cameras, business cameras, or static cameras, to see if we can develop a timeline and a route of travel for Karen Read's vehicle or someone else that could have been there. And then an incomplete inconsistency, it breeds the follow-on, and which is another I word. Maybe I should have coined all these, but is inaccuracies. Incomplete, inconsistent.
You know what's funny is that the prosecution didn't have any videos of Read driving from the bar to the house, Fairview, or from Fairview back to John's. Why?
Right.
Would any of that have shown an erratic driver?
Exactly.
Or
Can you hear me?
woman-
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Or would have shown somebody who appeared to be driving normally.
Right.
I mean,
But we
Ricky
did
only
have someone
interacted.
testifying that she drove fine. And they were driving in front of, I mean, she was driving in front of them, so they even asked, was she driving erratically? There's no videos, but we do have someone testifying that she wasn't driving erratically.
Right, and then when Ricky and Nagel approach her, find her at the intersection, they're only there for a second, and they're only behind her for a second. They didn't,
Right.
That's not really enough time to really tell, I guess, if somebody's drinking and driving. But why not? If there's none in discovery, then they didn't go and find any. They didn't go seek
Right.
it. If they did, it would be there, but nobody looked at it, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So did they not even seek it in this? And then don't forget, I forget which officer it was. I think it might have been Buchanan, Bucknick, whatever his name is. What does Miss Shorty call him? Didn't he testify that when they were talking about the inverted Sallyport video, he tried to say, well, turns out all CCT around Canton was inverted. I was like, oh, no. And the judge is like, That's the one time
Right.
she did. She was like, you can't, we're not talking about all over town CCTV. We're talking about your Sallyport CCTV. We could care less about the rest, but come back later because now I got questions. If we got inverted cameras all over town,
How many cases does it affect?
who's installing all these inverted cameras?
Exactly.
I mean, we need to fire them today. We're wasting
For
money.
real.
Shit.
Yeah.
These trials are costing us a fortune, and now we're paying what for some inverted cameras?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my
This whole
God.
case is inverted, honestly.
All ends up with inaccuracies, and you see it. Now we have all these inaccuracies in the case that makes you start scratching your head. Why don't any of these things add up? Why do we have so many things that conflict with each other? And the reason that happens is it happens because the investigation had all three of those eyes. Their process was flawed from the beginning. And I get the question from people that know I was assisting, which is, Mike, what do you think? Are they biased? Is it corruption? And that's a really hard question to answer. And the reason I say that is I've worked cases all over the country. I've worked cases in Central and South America and parts of Europe. and I've seen corruption, and I've seen cases that are also worked by people that are just poorly trained and have no experience. And the problem is corruption, inexperience, and no training, they end up looking very similar in the result. And the problem with that then is, how do you determine corruption versus incompetence or lack of experience? And that really then becomes a hard decision for the trier of facts, I think, ultimately. My opinion is that I don't have one, whether it was corruption or incompetence or experience. I think the results speak from the South that the investigators lack the training and experience necessary to have a complete, thorough, and accurate investigation.
Linda, I thought
I'm
it'd be
just
fun.
blown. I'm writing this down. I'm just blown away with what kind of testimony Mike Easter would have given,
Oh my
and just the
gosh.
presentation, and just this little thumbnail sketch we have of having it incomplete, inconsistent, and inaccurate, leading to it could be incompetence, it could be bias, it could be anything, but it's the same result. I'm just blown away by the whole thematic approach. And so, Mike, what would you say? I'm sure you had. I always have like a rule of threes. Was the three worst things that you saw that were not done? If I'm phrasing that correctly.
So that's a really good question. I think the worst thing that was done from the beginning was the response. And that's what struck me the most. Everyone focuses on the investigation and the outcome of the investigation. As a former law enforcement officer, I've responded to dozens of OIS, or officer involved shootings. And I can tell you that the response is overwhelming. We don't have to beg people to come in and help find the suspect. In fact, we spend more time telling people to not come in, go home, get some sleep, come back later. When I looked at this case, my first law enforcement reaction was, why didn't anybody show up? Why didn't everybody show up? I would have walked in the snow to go help.
Right.
In this case.
I mean, that's really a good thought, because I think a lot of us don't think of it in that capacity because we're not law enforcement, right? That's not our brother laying out there kind of thing. But that's true. We have an officer involved anything around here, they all come out, right, of the woodworks. Like, so, right.
Yeah, I thought that was one of my first thoughts, and I think I even wrote a comment about it. So my ex is a cop, so I'm like, why isn't there more people out there? If you have a fellow officer lying in the ground, why aren't you getting the homeowner, who's also law enforcement, quote unquote, to acknowledge that? I mean, come on. He didn't show no concern at all for a fellow officer lying in his front yard, not to mention everyone else.
Did they send out some kind of signal, like, nothing to see over here? But now we had the creepers who would ride by in their vehicle, but no.
You think the whole street would be full of police officers?
Yeah, girl. And not only did the homeowner a cop, right? But when the guy across the street with the ring cam, with the solo cup
He's
guy,
not even standing in the front damn yard, or doesn't even come out. What is he doing?
Doesn't even come out to see why y'all wanted solo cups.
Exactly.
What's all this,
So you can wake me up for some damn solo cups, but you aren't intrigued enough or concerned enough to get your ass out there.
And
I mean, you're first responder, so.
Well, you would think, just because they're law enforcement, their nature alone.
Yes.
Their curiosity alone would have been piqued enough to get out there and figure out what's happening in my neighborhood, on my street.
Yep.
Whether you thought it was an accident or not. What did someone knock on the door? Hey man, I need some red solo cups. This chick just hit this dude by accident.
So your first thought is to go to cover for the person that's in the house and not be concerned why someone, like, okay, so if you know that that person's out on the lawn, or even if you don't, why is your first thought going to, I need to cover up for the homeowner and not say anything?
Well, it appears they're trying to cover up.
This person needs my help.
Yeah.
Not the latter.
Exactly. And has the jury, do they consider any of that? Now, Now, I think they would consider the ones that would consider that stuff would be the ones who aren't convinced a car hit him.
Right.
If you're convinced a car hit him, then you're not about to buy the theory of a dog and something happening in that house and something going on between Karen and Higgins and John and da 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 da.
Mhm.
But if you believe there's a chance the car didn't do that and the dog or something else did, then you're gonna
Right.
then you would weigh
That's
that
when you
other
would
stuff,
think that
right?
first. Right. That would be first in my mind, unless someone has told you otherwise
Right.
and you already know. I don't know.
There's got to be a couple of holdouts who do consider that and can't
Mhm.
just blow it off as a cute story theory. We're not going to buy it no matter what, because come on, why would the cops do something like that?
Mhm.
Got to be some, at least one going, man, I don't want to
Right.
believe it. That makes sense, right? That could have
Right.
happened that way. I just don't know how much reason.
Common sense again. So, yeah.
Because then I think of the people I know with and without the common sense. I'm like, I don't even know anymore because it's a
Right.
toss-up. We might as well flip a coin.
Common sense is not common anymore. Let's put it that way.
No, it's not. And you think you got common sense going on, and you thought the person that you knew well maybe had some too, and then one day you're like, and they're like, well, my common sense told me to do this, and you're like, that's your common sense? Oh
Right.
wow. You pray silently. You just, pray for your friend.
Right. Exactly.
But gosh, man, it takes some people a while to get there.
Yeah.
So far, it's
Yeah.
taken this jury almost 13 hours and 45 minutes.
Right.
They're at 13:43.
I've had agents that have been
Gosh.
shot. I've had fellow law enforcement officers that I worked a lot with LAPD. A young LAPD officer I recall getting killed trying to stop just a graffiti incident late at night. Brand new rookie cop, and made the decision to try to make a difference and paid his life for it. And the response was overwhelming, right? When you look at this, do you feel you get a response or an idea that the response from law enforcement was overwhelming? No, I didn't. In fact, at times I thought, why? What's going on over there in Massachusetts that we don't see this response? I always thought Boston, the old saying, blue was blue. And I didn't see it in this case. Didn't, at least not in the way I would hope to have seen it, which is everybody showing up and not having to be sent home or having to be sent home. Did you want to respond to that? I'll give you a second one, or you can respond.
No. Please give us a second one. This is fascinating. It's wonderful listening to you.
Okay. Well, hopefully I won't overtalk you. The second thing I think after that was what we see in the investigation. So then we have to take a step back. And the step back, the thing that I thought was most interesting was the lack of training. And that is a cultural problem. Their style of policing, the way they respond to this, reminds me of what I used to see about 20 years ago when I first came in. This sort of shoot from the hip, gunslinger kind of, our word is our bond. We just do what we do. This is how we do it. And it bore out in the response. We see a leaf blower, we see solo cups, we see a shopping bag. We see no chain of evidence. We see, think of the chain of evidence that wasn't collected at the crime. So we see no preservation of the crime scene. And instead, we see an abandonment of it. It was never secured. No proper collection of evidence.
Abandonment.
There was never even a sketch or diagram.
I like that. Abandonment of the crime scene. And once you abandon a crime scene, you are asking for all kinds of contamination and all sorts.
Well, everything is in question at that point. How can you actually prove if it's contaminated from the beginning?
And any defense attorney is going to attack that, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
Because that's a huge misstep, and that's literally on you and law enforcement, and they know better. Especially even if you considered that, well, first of all, you considered there was an accident, obviously, from the get-go.
Right.
The second you concluded in your brain there was an accident, and you are now also knowing this woman was intoxicated, why didn't you secure that scene? in case you had a
Yeah.
full-on vehicular homicide on your hands. Huh.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And then they
I
get
agree,
away with
John,
all
that
that
anybody
bad
could
collection.
go back and piece back the crime scene itself.
Exactly.
Instead, we have to rely on some really blurry dash cam video to try to piece together where Mr. O'Keefe finally laid to rest, right? That's horrible. I mean, no one, the first thing you learn at responding to a crime scene is secure this crime scene, identify witnesses and suspects, separate them, do a safety sweep. I mean, you have a dead person on the lawn. What's the possibility the suspect's still present or other victims are present, not just on the lawn, but in the property itself? So that second part is cultural. It's a training issue. And I think you'll see Massachusetts State Police and Canton Police PD have a huge cultural shift from this. And maybe that'll be the biggest thing that the city of Canton or that area will see is a culture in the policing process. At least I would hope. And then my third one is the investigative process itself. It lacked a process. And that was the most surprising thing to me that, listen, I will give them this, is that having worked these types of critical incidences, the pressure, not just from the victim family, from your peers as you work this, but management, even elected officials. I've worked some of the biggest cases in the country, and the pressure that you get to solve that thing before people break for the day. They want hourly briefings. The investigators are under enormous pressure to solve that problem very quickly. And that's where the investigative process has to remain consistent. You can't start taking shortcuts. You can't leapfrog investigative steps and get to an ultimate conclusion too prematurely. Or oftentimes what happens is you miss evidence you should have collected. You eliminate people that could have been suspect or should have been suspects. And you sort of fall in love with the suspect too soon and get vapor lock, or which, a lot of people say confirmation bias, that's the person. We're going to prove they did it. And I want it done by 2 p.m. Or some heads are going to roll. That's those would be my three things on it. I hopefully maybe didn't spend too much time on them for you.
No,
it's amazing. Let me ask this as a follow-up, because I think if you were to testify, it would have come up. People are pointing out the fact that maybe it wasn't so shocking that the response to a officer down in the circumstance where you have other officers involved, as in, I don't know, the homeowner and some of the others involved in the investigation. Did that play into your analysis at all, that there may have been not just let's take care of the officer down, but let's protect the other officers who might be involved?
I think it's a reasonable question. I don't think that is a reasonable reason, though. And I don't think it was ultimately the reason. I think, let's just say your argument's true. I still would have expected a large response, not to hide, but to a large response and to huddle. And hey, what are we going to do with this situation? And some very in these big incidences, there should always be a big command incident. There should have been a command incident commander, somebody in charge of the command, a response. There would be big type of group meetings. And then there's the small group meeting, the very intimate people that are going to really solve this problem meet separately. And we would have seen those things if this was
like the missing text.
Even if, as you discussed, Michael, there is some, I don't want to say corruption, but a tendency to protect somebody. There would have still been a response, or we would have seen an enormous phone tree happening. Although no that type of evidence was collected clearly, but I think ultimately that's where the other investigation that was happening was probably looking into.
So I have a question. I just want to tell our viewers that we're going to hold your super chats. We're going to continue with Ms. Easter without doing the super chats right now for the moment.
And you have to wonder now, he just said that, are the jurors talking about this other investigation? Why was that happening? Are they talking about things like, why was that lady in her family texting and they were saying, tell him the guy never went in the house? That's bizarre. Why would they do that?
Mm-hmm.
Or those things they weigh. So if you're in the camp of, they didn't prove to me he was hit by a car, are you going to point those things out to your fellow jurists, right? when you're talking about why you don't feel like you're going to go with guilty.
Right.
I don't think he was hit by a car, and here's why, based on this testimony. And then I got to go look at this testimony and say, well, this could have happened in that house. Not for me to figure out, but I'm just saying it could have happened. Reasonable doubt. You know, I don't, it's so crazy.
Yes.
So crazy.
The issue of the medical examiner, as you know, my husband is a forensic pathologist. The issue of the whole medical examiner and dissing her with regard to the injuries. What would be the proper response when you have a medical examiner who says, "Look, you know, in the first 9 days, I've looked at everything you have. I don't find this a homicide. I don't find any injuries consistent with an automobile strike here." Where does that lead you? Does that lead you to say, you know, she's a whack job? Or I mean, I know I know the answer to that because that's what was in the text. But where do you go if you want to continue investigating because you don't want to have either what you think may be her vapor lock or your vapor lock?
Yeah, I found you talking about Scorty Bello.
Yes, Scorty Bello.
Yeah, I found her to be one of the most credible witnesses there.
Mm-hmm.
Her demeanor, her poise, her confidence, and the science. You know, you hear the science is the science, right? It is what it is. I tend to look at things in my world of the data is the data. It tells the story. It doesn't have an opinion one side or the other. Sometimes it benefits you, sometimes it doesn't. In this instance, to really answer your question a little more fairly.
Well, in that case, Celebrite says John O'Keefe was very much alive and moving after 12/31/38. I vote not guilty.
Is
Me
that
too.
that's the investigators?
Oops. Oh, shit.
Mr.
I got to go back and grab that. I hit the wrong button.
You laughed
Sorry,
yourself
guys.
all the way out of that one.
I had something in my hand and when I went to click the mouse and it messed up. So we voted, Butterfly and I were both voting our verdict. We voted not guilty, and I got excited and took down what we were watching. Oh, my hand wasn't working right. Okay. He said, it is what it is. Let me get this back up. You're right, sir. It is what it is. Things happen. My hands are, whatever. My shoulders are bum, so my hands are bum. Okay.
I tend to look at things in my world of the data is the data. It tells the story. It doesn't have an opinion one side or the other. Sometimes it benefits you, sometimes it doesn't. In this instance, to really answer your question a little more fairly, is that that's the investigator's job, is to collect the evidence that proves the medical examiner wrong or allows them to make a more informed decision, right? That's where the see, when you think of, when I look back at this, the investigation was over by what, 11 p.m. It never really got legs. And because of that, you even saw in the trials, both of them, that they're still trying to figure out mid-trial in both cases, what happened? Can we still collect some more or conduct more testing to
see? So true.
Try to bear out what really happened. And I guarantee if there's a third trial, there's more evidence that they're going to try to find. There'll be more testing. So this, in some respects, the case isn't done being investigated, and it shouldn't be. In my opinion, there's still some valuable evidence that's available that should be collected if they knew where to look.
Like what specifically?
For real.
I'm sort of reluctant to share, only because my job's not to help the process.
Okay, so why
Good
don't
for him. Yeah.
what? Okay, so he needs to reach out to his friends that could possibly help with evidence and new technology, I'm going to say.
Well, I think he's reluctant to share because we don't have a verdict yet. So
True that. He don't want to put it out
Yeah.
there on the national
Mhm.
spotlight. So reach out, like I said. Don't
Yeah.
go use that Signal
I'm
app.
sure
or
he
whatever.
has. I'm sure he has.
Make a personal phone call. The call log's fine. Nobody need to know what you talked about. Just don't
Right.
text it. Don't text it. He knows that.
Like
He knows
in person.
this guy knows what's up, right? He knows already.
Yeah.
He's like,
Exactly.
ladies, be quiet. I'm trying to school y'all. Here we are giving him our armchair advice.
Right.
Okay, so yeah, bring on those experts. Now, remember, we just got finished. Okay. We just watched a trial where witnesses came and testified who literally reached out to the defense.
Mm-hmm.
So why not again? If there's a third trial where more people step forward and go, like, we think we can help you, but don't, that Brennan guy, I'm going to bring it if he brings it. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, he's questioning, oh, did they prep you? Did they, well, they do the same thing with their witnesses. So why is he's trying to make it sound like it's a bad thing when both sides do it?
Yeah. I think, and if you, and you know what I noticed, because I got to thinking about that, right? Because of course, duh, it's like that is standard protocol, sir.
Mhm.
What is having a witness if you, an expert witness, if you never get to confer with them and or read their reports or have a conversation? Obviously, it's common practice. So, but when the defense would get up there and talk, they would question. They were nicer about it. Did you have communications prior? Did you meet with Mr.
Right.
Brennan prior? They would point out that those people absolutely did as well. But prosecution gets up there like a snake.
Mm-hmm. Well, we already know because I mean, once it comes to the hoodie thing, it's like, okay, we thought it, but now that confirms what we were thinking. So,
Right?
in my opinion,
I would have to absolutely, and you know, if you're from the area, even if you don't, or, you know, I'm sure they're familiar with the case somewhat, and they know it's a second trial and all that. But are you also familiar with some of those local attorneys? If you're into the news, or if you're in, if you say you sit on a committee somewhere within the community, and you know of these judges and these attorneys, whatever. But I think you're supposed to also identify if you're a potential juror. They ask you, do you know any of these people? And you're supposed to answer honestly and truthfully. Yes, I do, or no, I don't. I know those are even going to be on the juror questionnaires in Idaho, is do you know any of these people? And if you do, you're supposed to say you do. But have they heard things on the news? Say like Brennan, he's an attorney. He defended the darn mob boss, you know, then turned prosecutor, now special prosecutor. I don't know.
right?
You got people in communities that don't trust their government versus the ones who have absolute blind faith. You know, I don't know
Yeah.
how, and you would think that, you know, that's what the part of the jury selection, such a big process to try to weed out those types of individuals if possible.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
Prosecution collecting
Okay,
new
fair,
evidence.
fair. That's fair. What does the issue of the whole FBI? The judge wouldn't allow them to hear that there's Department of Justice, FBI involved in this investigation. Now, was there things that you saw that you were able to riff on in your report, even though you couldn't mention FBI, as to things that should have been done? I'm not sure if I'm phrasing that right.
Yeah, I understand your question. Maybe just understand what I did for them ultimately was that in review, I talked about those three things as I looked at the investigation itself and the discovery items, and took each item, looked at it for what it provided, its incompleteness, its inconsistencies, and its inaccuracies. And then I wrote a report that identified what they did, what I thought the best practice would have been. And then I showed what does that look like in comparison to their own policy guide. And I wrote an opinion that on those key elements. And I looked at crime scene response, crime scene management, documentation, investigative techniques or lack of investigative techniques that were used, the premature assignment of individuals at 34 Fairview as witnesses only and not as suspects, no chronological case file, no overarching, well-maintained case management from beginning to end. And ultimately, I think one of the critical flaws was no timeline. And you saw that now in those trials is that they couldn't put the time together, and they're doing it after the fact with these witnesses on the stand to try to make sense of time. Time is, when I teach process for the Bureau, especially like a kidnapping or abduction, homicide cases where I've worked, if you've seen them, clearly we all seen mass shootings. I worked at the Vegas. I worked Paddock's phone for that case. The number one thing is time. We need to establish a time from beginning to end and see where the evidence fits in the timeline. And when it doesn't fit, we need to understand, well, why? And that leads to follow-on investigation. Why doesn't this event fit in our time?
Absolutely. Because I'll say it again, and I'll probably say it to the day I no longer exist. Aperture 123138. But
Right.
between 1231.56 and 1232, John O'Keefe, well, his phone was taking 36 steps towards the front door of that home, and it went 84 feet
Hmm.
all by itself, and then went back across the yard and got up under his shoulder.
Right.
Okay, right? I mean, God, jury, what can I just go like, oh,
For real.
can I portal in and be a fly on the wall? Really? Can I channel me some Lori Vallow right now? Let me just go in the corner and portal on my ass on
That's too much of a risk being pulled towards Lori's portal. So no, never
Oh
mind.
no, I got this. Nah. Lori's portal don't want none of this. I'm telling you now.
Timeline. Is our timeline off, or is this event that somebody recollected off? And we need to reconcile those things before we get to trial.
You mentioned a couple of things that are super important. One is something, a drum I've been beating all along, which is at the end of a trial, if you don't know what the hell happened, how do you get beyond that to find any sort of guilt?
Right.
But you mentioned, and I'll be honest about this, I've been known to poo-poo the cell phone data and how accurate it is and how reliable it is. And I think sometimes it's hard for a jury to embrace it as well. So how do you get them to believe? And you talk about, timelines not syncing up. They've heard everything in this case about what the data tells them or doesn't tell them. How do you get a jury to follow that science and understand and believe it?
Right. You bring up a good point. And I think it's important to make a distinction. When I say cell phone records, for me personally, I'm talking about the cell phone provider. And that would be Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T, Sprint when they existed. I think in this case, the people kept referring to them as cell phone records, as the Cellebrite or forensic extraction of the mobile devices themselves. I don't term those cell phone records. Those are a forensic extraction. Cell phone records I look at more separately from the provider, and the times that come from those phone records are easy to sync up because we know what controls time in the cellular network. It's the switch for Verizon, for example. And so chronologically, we see those time events established, and we can replicate those by reattaching to the network very easily. I completely agree with you, Michael, on the Cellebrite stuff. I couldn't agree more. In fact, I find, and I don't want to poo-poo Cellebrite because I think the tool is amazing, but it's amazing for a couple things. It's amazing for content, your call list, and like I would say searches of the internet. It's horrible, absolutely horrible at time. And it's horrible at time because every time I've worked a case, it's always the outlier. They're like, what happened at this time? I'm like,
Okay, see, that's super interesting, right?
Right.
Because Hyde testified that, Cellebrite deleted that one program that would have showed a certain timestamp. They didn't delete phone data evidence from the case. They deleted something in their own program. But the other two companies were still utilizing that program. And because I've been watching cell phone stuff since it started being introduced into courts. And there's been a lot over the past year. I've been watching this one particular person, well, two, weighing the options. Different, I call them my data dudes. One is Cyray, and then the other one is Garrett from Garrett Discovery Guy. And I've seen what they have to say, but they own their own companies, right? And they have their own softwares, and they all have their different thoughts and theories. We got one telling us FBI CAS is we got one saying, oh, well, I know better, but it's the companies like this, the Cellebrites, the Axioms, all of the different ones that are out there doing this kind of work for teams, right? And how accurate is what they're using and utilizing. And
it makes you wonder, is this going to end up, any part of it going to end up being called junk science, just like some of this other stuff is when it comes to like teeth and things of that nature that
eventually they
considered
say,
before.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, for right now, if it's an accepted standard, it's an accepted standard until it's challenged. And
Mm-hmm.
once it's challenged, or technology's better, or the people in that field make it better, things like that. Will it?
Right.
Can't. I think it's all can be challenged at some point, but to what
Mm-hmm.
extent? That's a whole. It depends.
Right.
Like even if you
Right.
look at the Rex Heuermann case in New York, because they have the hairs, right, that were found on the victims that matched the wife and the daughter. One strand matched his daughter from one victim, a couple of strands from a couple of victims matched the wife. These hairs contain nuclear DNA. In the past, it's always been hard to get a good DNA profile from a hair without a shaft, with some good nuclear DNA, just the mitochondrial. There's a whole, but this
Right.
particular type that they used in the Heuermann case to develop that profile has never been admitted into court in New York. So there's
Mm-hmm.
a showdown happening, but it's been used other places, right? And so I've kind of I try to keep my eye on the technology as it advances with the whatever we're talking about here, whether it's DNA, Celebrate, or cell phone data, because look at all the data in the Koberger case alone. There's huge amounts of data in these large cases now. We're
Mm-hmm.
hearing about it in all of them. We heard about it in Delphi. Every case I've covered over the past 2 years, the defense talks about the amount of data how many terabytes of data they've gotten in discovery.
Right.
So there's a lot of data. How accurate is it, and how can we trust it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because like he said, Celebrite's got some good data. They got good information, but
Right.
pertaining to what level, right? So
Well, it makes you question it because then you have people like Burgess out there doing shady stuff.
oh
That's
God, using cell phone data, right, to clocks, and this guy's over here talking about how good. So he's saying interesting things about these clocks and cell phone data, and
right.
is that why the defense didn't go after some of it a little harder? Because there's maybe some truth to it, but I don't, still, even if there's truth behind it, Aperture's over here saying, well, all that cell phone data is debunked because we conclude using a cell phone that the accident
Right.
occurred at 12:31. So all that stuff that happened afterwards and before that y'all are weighing doesn't even matter because it's cell phone
Well,
data.
they have their own discrediting their own experts. I
Exactly.
mean, Burgess over there discrediting everybody else because they didn't see the
Canceling
stupid
each other
SD
out.
card that he damaged. So therefore, he's the aha in this whole thing, and everyone else is wrong.
He's so brilliant. We all strive to be like him. It would have been different if he had come out and really made me believe what they were trying to sell me.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're going to change that timeline and you're going to fix this clock using that phone and doing this and that, then why did Miss Hyde come out and say 12:20 after 12:20:50? No interaction with the phone until
Right.
the following morning. I'm sorry, 1:12:32 she logged an interaction, which is well after alleged accident, phone under shoulder. So
Mm-hmm.
what's up with her data? And then I got Whiffen over here telling me a whole story. I mean, I got a whole page with nothing but a timeline starting at 12:05:12. The phone is stationary at the waterfall. 12:19 traveling toward the home. I mean, I got a whole page of what he said.
Mm-hmm.
Know when the phone went into pocket state and how many times Jen sent phone messages and that John chat. All of that is no good now. Like I can't
Well,
buy all
you
that.
would
You know
think
what
if
I
they're
mean?
going to have all these witnesses, they're going to complement, or it's going to naturally fit,
Yeah.
not contradict.
Yes, it should be a cohesive thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And it should all match up. And their
Right.
timeline is never apparently matched up. Apparently, they never had a real timeline. They couldn't even
Mm-hmm.
tell you in this whole trial what time of death occurred.
Right.
And I
Exactly.
understand y'all's manner of death and mechanism. I understand that definition completely, Lord knows. But nobody could come up with a time of death either.
Mm-mm.
No, or unless we're going to take, at the hospital when y'all stopped all life-saving measures and pronounced dead, are we
Yeah.
going with that time? You know what I mean? We're going to do that. That's fine, but you're claiming he was dead when y'all found him. And
Yeah.
I don't see that.
He's
Thank
the man in the snow, not the decorated police officer as Jen described him. Maybe
Yeah,
that's
how
why
about
they didn't get a whole big, well, at first, initially. But she described him as a man in the snow. She didn't say he was a police officer.
Jennifer?
Yeah.
Jennifer McCabe? Yeah,
Mhm.
she goes hard for her friends, doesn't she? He's a man in the snow.
Mhm.
Okay, so y'all
But
got a
even
man in the
after
snow,
that, when they
blame it on
did
the
find
girl.
out, yeah.
Yeah, blame it on the girl, the man in the snow. So I could have believed all that. I could have gotten down with it if the prosecution hadn't come out so hard. But then they had to follow all that up with some blue paint stuff and a man leaning into the car. Shit, I could have recreated that out in the yard with my kiddos. Like, come on,
Right.
boys. They would have
The
thought it was
blueberry
fun.
man.
My grandbaby's got finger paint in there somewhere. I'm sure he's got blue. Shoot,
Break
I
out the
could have done
gun,
that
the
in my
blue man.
yard and been YouTube famous, right? Look here, I figured it out.
Right.
We're gonna back. Oh shoot, we could have used the four-wheeler because it's like I'm short, so I could have made it line up to like match me.
Right.
I don't know. My son's got a Toyota. It's got a little bit of a lift. I had to go out later and see if it matches to my arm. I don't know. One of us will match it. There's plenty of us around here. Well,
Right.
I had to stop and count. There's 3 in this house, and the neighbor, there's 2 in that house. But they're tall people.
Right. Yep.
I love my neighbors, but they're tall. She's tall. Her little chickens are so darn cute. Oh my god,
Oh, really?
they had the cutest little rooster house out
Oh,
there
no.
that she got them, but they're growing so fast. My god. Alright. So let's listen to a little bit more of this, and then we're gonna go troll around and see if we can get any updates. And before we head out for the day, like I said, I just came back in because I was bored. I'm hanging out. It's rainy in Florida. I'm the only one home. The animals are all like, we're going to sleep because it's raining all day.
Mhm.
I don't even know where they are. I mean, they're here in the house somewhere. The cat's hiding. I think the dog is on the. She kind of owns a love seat in the living room that she's like made it her own. That, like, seriously,
That's her throne.
yeah, my son and my grandson each have a recliner in the living room, and I'm rarely in there that much, like watching TV with them. I chill in my big room with all my things, right? That's where I like to be. But so she's like took over that love seat now, and that's hers. Like, no, I don't even like. Do you want me to recline it for you, ma'am?
Right.
Jesus.
With the little tiara.
If I don't let her in my room, that's usually where I find her because I can't
Yeah.
always let her in here because her and the cat. You know how they do. One day they're friends and one day they're not. It's all good.
Yeah.
Animals.
Yes.
According to what? They're like the forensic extraction.
I'm so glad that Pipsqueak's doing better and wasn't traumatized from her
Oh, I know. Poor
wildlife
thing.
adventures. Having to share her yard with this wildlife sanctuary now, our little mascot.
No.
Okay.
I'm like, okay, forget time. Forget time when we look at Celebrate. Let's just look at it for content. I think there's a lot of value, and we could probably have that discussion separately. But time from Celebrate or any other forensic extraction tool, I do not put a lot of weight on it. Instead, I look at it and okay, where did you get it from? What sourced the time? Is it, when we look at the forensic extraction, time can be controlled by a couple things. One, the network time, NTOP, the network time protocol, or GPS. So what's controlling it? And how was the time recorded? Was it the event start, duration, end? Was it something they looked back at? I absolutely, you're probably getting me too excited about it. I absolutely, every time I work a case and they're like, well, we got the time from the forensic extraction, I just like, please God, help us, because it's never right. And anytime, whenever it's, you think to this case, I think you would even find yourself, there's one of my eyes, there's too many inconsistencies in time as it relates to Celebrate. So then inconsistencies bear out one of the Daubert standards, I think, or Fry, or whatever you guys use on the East Coast, of reliability. If something's inconsistent, is it reliable?
So your Daubert hearing and your Fry hearing are the same. Different jurisdictions call it different things. And that's what the whole hearing is about, is to weigh the evidence trying to be introduced. And so they're holding the Fry hearings in New York for the hairs and the DNA hair in the Huerman case.
Right.
Right. And I would argue it's not.
Yeah.
So yeah, Mike, I think I totally agree with you. I think if you could look past time, the forensic extractions are great for content, photos especially. I've worked so many cases where kidnappers have photographed their victims or photographed evidence that they stole, that kind of stuff. So even text content, the names of people that are on their phone tree, because sometimes that's it'll say killer 2, and it's like, perfect, that's exactly what we wanted it to say, that kind of stuff.
How about the apps? I know when we were doing Aaron Hernandez, there was an issue about whether the app's time was correct versus, because all the apps seem to have different times versus the time that was done from the extractions. How does that play in, and was that done here?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think one of my fellow my peers, the guy I used to work with, testified in that case. So I hopefully I don't say something that's different than what he said.
Well, I had the two not guilty on the double murder, so we didn't have the first case. We didn't have the first case where he was convicted. We had the not guilty case, which was after the first case was convicted.
Okay. All right. I don't want to contradict prior testimony from a colleague. I think what I would say then is, what was the app collecting? Oftentimes the user gives permission for the app to collect location information, and then what is the derivative of the evidence collected from the app? Did they use it for source location information? Then you should accept that the app time is GPS time, right? So it really would depend on what you're collecting from the app. If it's photos, you got to be really careful, because is the metadata from the photo is what's controlling time, or is it when the photo was sent, when it was taken?
Oh gosh, not the metadata. That takes me back to Delphi. We need to know the metadata now. We need to know. Oh no, we can't trust any of that cell phone stuff.
Right.
They're all going to be different. Did AT&T keep records prior to or not?
So I would think we would probably have a larger discussion on what the app's doing for you, but I tend to find apps.
First of all, can we get you on to talk about that? Because y'all turn off all your location stuff.
I know, right?
You know what though? For years, I don't let mine know my location. I just never wanted to let something have control like that. No, you don't need to, not unless I'm tell you to. That's the way I looked at it. Now, of course, my Google, if I get in the car, I need a map, I'm going to pull it up. I'm fine. I really don't care if it knows where I'm going or not. Like, please find me if I get kidnapped. But
right.
Me and my kiddo have Life 360, and let me tell you, it's dead on accurate. I watched it improve over the years. I've had it since he was 8 and he's 18. So we've had it for 10 years. And at first it would show him, say, like if he was at his dad's or at a sleepover, it would show him 3 houses down from where he really was. And it would have a circle, and it would have the circle going, but it would pinpoint him, ping him at the wrong house. And then over the years, it began to improve, and then it gradually kept getting better and getting better. And I'd say the past few years, it knows exactly where my kiddo is, at his work, at his dad's, at his school, at his friends, at his girlfriends. When he went to his girlfriends in West Virginia, all of it was dead accurate each and every time. I was impressed, how well it does work. And only because I've used it for so long is how I know how well it does work, even as far as the time my phone says is the time I'm talking to my kiddo. If I text him or call him, and confirm that is what he's doing or whatever, or where he's at. It's always been accurate without any problems.
Yeah.
So we're not going to finish watching all of that, guys, because that's a pretty good interview, though. And I
Mm-hmm.
wonder, did they feel like they drove it home enough to show how bad the investigation really was, right? The mishaps, the missteps, the not securing the crime scene, the methods used to collect the evidence, the methods used to test the lack of chain of custody. As far as that goes, then the chain of custody to all the busted taillight pieces, how they were found, even the grid search that was conducted where they, swept the area from the mailbox back toward the flagpole, all of that. There's just a
Yeah.
lot. I guess there was really a lot for them to weigh if they're considering every aspect of the case, like if they move through it like they did at trial.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Now I think about the particular questions they just had this morning, right? Those were asked for a particular reason? Were they going over their options and ask those questions midway through deliberation? It's so darn hard to gauge. There's just no telling for real. It just makes me so curious, like to get into a juror's mind. And I don't mind that. I hope they're not bombarded the minute this is over, right? But I don't mind if they come out and talk. I'm not mad at it if it's their choice, right? If they come out and speak and they want to speak, hey, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at the Free Karen Reed updates page on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
2 minutes ago, it just says not guilty . But they're showing footage outside the courtroom, and there's quite a crowd. I was just looking at Twitter to get an update and to see if anybody's got anything going on. And this is the Karen Reed updates at Karen Reed Disconnect. Oh, okay. I didn't know what their at was. You and I, we've looked at a couple of their updates together.
Yeah.
So I just never paid attention to what their
Me
at
neither.
was. In case you guys are like trolling Twitter and you want to know, like, what is she looking at? Let me see. We've done this before where we just trolled Twitter together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'd be
Do
bored.
you see this? You see that? You see that?
Yeah, so there's the crowd. Here's what I was looking at a minute ago. Oops, it said it. I don't know why it's spinning like that right there, but it was. And I don't think it has any sound. It was moving a few minutes ago, even though it was spinning like that. Crowd outside. They reposted Turtle Boy from 56 minutes ago. Oops. This means the jury is only arguing and disagreeing about if there is reasonable doubt that Karen Reed was over the legal limit when she drove her car. There is no way they will hang on this.
I've seen so many of these AI baby videos. Hilarious, some of them.
Those little babies
Yeah.
that people post, girl.
Yeah.
Even when I get on like YouTube and I'm just scrolling through the shorts or whatever,
Yeah.
there's some cute ones in there.
Yeah.
Judge Canoni is an absolute disgrace to the judicial system from Microdots an hour ago. Yeah, it would appear to be the case. So yeah, I don't know, guys. Everybody's at a standstill waiting, of course. We got Verdict Watch is trending. Free Karen Reed is trending, of course. Miss Shorty, this is for you. # Free Karen Reed. If you're listening, I think I replied that to a comment on a post she made on X this morning. She tweeted something, and I hashtagged that back to her because she made a joke about it once about we're going to get Salty to hashtag it, because I always said I don't hashtag Free Karen Reed because I was never part of the movement, right? Like that. Want to do it all open-minded, whatever. So I told her, I've been going over there and doing the updates with her on her channel. But yeah, so It's a joke between me and Miss Shorty. So I did. I hashtagged FKR to her today. And you know that DePetro guy had something bad to say about the hand signal. He said it was the sign of the devil. And I'm like, or the
What the
evil. I'm like,
hell?
no, dude, upside down. That's to ward off the evil. And you don't use the thumb. That's just the
That's
horns. You
yeah.
you got to get it right. You never followed Ozzy Osbourne or
Isn't
Ronnie
that,
James Dio, did you, dude?
but isn't that like sign language anyway? Or
Yes, that is sign language, right? But what he was talking about, the sign of the devil, is the horns, and it's literally your pinky and your pointer, whatever you want to call that finger that you point with, and your
hmm
pinky, but in the upside down is you're fighting off the evil eye, fool.
But when
If
you
you
don't
hold it
have the
up,
thumb, that's hook 'em horns for Texas. So the
exactly,
fact,
or it means you're giving the evil eye. Okay, normally if you're doing it Ozzy Osbourne style, you're giving the
Mhm.
evil eye. But if you hold it
Oh
down,
Lord.
you're fighting off the evil eye. Which this really the truth. You're giving it, or you're sending it, or you're trying to keep it
Mhm.
away. But
Well, the
he's
fact that
all.
that's what he sees tells you a lot
I
about him.
know it did absolutely. I was like, and this clown goes on court TV. And
Wow.
he's out here thinking that that's the sign of the evil in Karen Reed, but he probably thinks some sticks on Libby and Abby meant nothing.
Yeah. I don't even want to know
Along with
his
those
thoughts on
runes,
that.
right? What's he think about runes and sticks if he thinks a damn hand gesture is like the evil
Yeah.
eye?
hmm
Whoa, get back. Break out
Oh yeah, Rachel, I agree.
crosses or whatever. Jesus, that guy
She
is
said,
weird.
Rachel said Bev will be sending the jury home in a half hour or so. I said, yeah, I've been looking at the clock too.
True that, it is 2:30, right? And they go
hmm
home at 3. She told the attorneys this morning to be there at 4 o'clock. I usually send the note out by 4 o'clock. Just be here by 4 o'clock in case this jury wants to go home. That's what she told them this
You
morning.
mean her? You mean she wants to go home?
Yeah,
She don't care about
she
anybody
blamed the
else. It's
jury.
her.
What was this? This is from a woman called an account called A Normal Mom. Is
I haven't seen that.
This is what I'm talking about? Free Karen Reed, justice for John O'Keefe. What is this? Oh, people they wrote stuff on there.
Mm.
Not guilty. The verdict form. Yeah, that was the one that they before she revised it, right? And it's
hmm
about time she needed to revise that thing because manslaughter's trending as well. Wow, social media has been, just really following this case and really just putting a lot of eyes on the case and
Right.
presence, right? Um, I didn't hear about the case outside of social media. I was following
Mm.
other cases and doing other things when this case started happening, and
Yeah.
I was literally following a couple of cases, Idaho and Delphi, when Karen Reed was really taken off.
Mhm.
And then the more I saw, it's like all of a sudden it blew up and it was like hard to keep up with. So I just kind of watched as stuff was unfolding.
Yeah.
And then there was so much with the social media. I've explained that. I just kind of backed off because I was really, Delphi was deep for me, guys, for a long, 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 long time. So I just watched the Karen Reed case from afar, and I never
Yeah.
thought those photos
Bits
looked
and
like a,
pieces.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. I think you and I were in the same camp with that.
hmm
We saw the photos, we saw the
The
headlines, we saw
solo
the things.
cups.
Yeah, we saw the things being said, we saw the abnormalities, but we didn't really follow the case like that.
Yeah.
So, with that said, going into this the way we did, not even watching the first trial, I think we both sit in the same place now. Are the other jurors like us? They knew a
Right.
little bit, but not enough, and now they're like, holy shit.
And they still don't know what we know because it wasn't allowed. And
True, there were things that they weren't allowed to come in that we were able to talk about and weigh in.
hmm
Even though Bev says strike that kind of stuff, I'm like, we can't unstrike that, man. We read it, we
right.
reviewed it. It is what it is. But then again, there were things the jury heard that Bev said strike. You didn't listen.
Yeah.
You didn't hear that whole last thing didn't happen. They're like, okay, I see that. But how much of that nonsense do they weigh as well? over
Mhm.
just, you're not really supposed to. It's just the actual evidence before you. So what evidence do they have
Right.
besides a blood test taking hours, over 6 hours later, taillight pieces that came,
Don't match with each other. Oh, not the tail
yeah,
light, the
found at all
pieces,
these
the
different
glass pieces.
times, and
Yeah.
discrepancies. We have that one cop testified that we know when they loaded that thing up, that tail light was there. But that's just that one
Mhm.
cop. Is that what is that what the jury's saying? That's just that one cop. Maybe he was mistaken out of, and he's the one wrong, not everybody else. You remember the cop
Mhm.
out of Denham when they went to load the SUV from her parents, to
Yeah.
take it back to Canton. That cop came and testified that Karen's
Mhm.
taillight lens was intact. He said crack, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that what he said?
Yeah. Mhm. And then remember when Carrie testified, she said one piece missing. She didn't say it
That's
was shattered.
right. She sure did. She said one piece missing. She never said shattered. I don't think
Mhm.
Jen McCabe could even confirm she saw anything shattered. I think
No.
she, no. Um, and there's too much that says something else could have happened, like her backing out of the John's garage and tapping into John's vehicle.
Mhm.
Common sense tells you, yeah, that could have cracked the taillight. That could have
Right.
actually knocked a piece off, if you want to be honest. It could have,
Mhm.
depending on the angle and the degree and the pressure and the
Exactly.
braking and all the mansplaining in the world tells me, yeah, a crack could have occurred, and the possibility at the right angle, a chunk may have fallen off. Maybe.
Mhm. Yep.
So it's just, there's too many. I would be I would probably be the reason the jury's still back there arguing this out. You think there's one of us back there like that?
I
Going
hope.
over every little
Put some
piece
common
again?
sense.
Yeah. I mean, you almost want to go through every little, you want them to go, like Rachel said, will they go through all the pieces? You want them to, because if they need to work it out in their head and talk it out, then so be it. And there's like a lot to unpack with this case.
Well,
I'm
yeah,
sure
over a month. So and all the
right?
testimony from the beginning that
Yeah.
they may have forgotten about. I mean, I know they took notes, but not everyone did. So I'm curious on the non note takers
They're
what
relying on
they're
the note
going to
takers
remember.
right now.
Right. Yeah.
They're relying on the note takers to go back and pull those notes and say, well, here's what was testified to. And don't forget, they can review any of that evidence they want to. They should be able to.
Hmm.
Because I
Right.
know they're allowed to review the evidence. Even the Delphi jurors came back into court to review the bridge guy footage again
Hmm.
before they ended up, coming to their conclusion and then reaching their verdict over there. So are they watching clips again? Remember, they had the questions earlier about the clips. Are they watching
Hmm.
testimony over again about the blood test?
Yep.
Because they can do that as well. If they need to review testimony, well, this is Massachusetts, so don't hold me to that. But a
Yeah.
lot of times they can review testimony again, especially if they took notes. Because I took notes. I'll be honest, I didn't take a lot of notes during that because I may have in the very beginning, but then it was like, man, there's no need to explain this to me 1,000 different ways for over 24 hours. And what was it, 2 days worth of testimony, I think, came out of that BS. And it's like, you
Hmm.
lost me at, this was taken at what time?
Yeah.
That's when you lost me as to the weight of that evidence, right? Just like, how much weight am I going to put behind this house long to die in cold? None. Because again, that data can't tell me when that happened, and nobody clarified it. So therefore, do I even account for that when I'm making my decision? Because I could literally leave that whole part out and still buy that whole conspiracy.
Yep.
I don't need a Google search to tell me or confirm that that happened, right? You just
Hmm.
don't. You got text messages talking about the guy didn't even go in the house. Carrie's telling him everything. Thank God. y'all know Carrie. She can't help herself, right? And were you listening to that, Carrie? I mean, not being ugly, but that's what they said about you, that you didn't know when to stop. Hang on, guys. So I
I'm
was
gonna
like, there you
I'm
are.
gonna send you something. Yeah, I'm gonna send you something real quick. It's hilarious. Hold on.
I don't know. I don't feel for this juror. Well, they got a lot of weight. Of course, you're trying to decide the fate of this defendant, this woman,
Mhm.
and that's a lot, and you need to weigh all that evidence. But man, do they not see? I mean, I guess they're putting some weight behind the fact that maybe a car hit him. Are they arguing that the most?
Okay, I put it in Discord.
Okay. Is that their
So
biggest issue, right?
yeah,
No, that's not what I think it is. Is it?
I don't think so. I mean, because they weren't even asking about that.
No, what
I
you
would think
just sent
they would
me.
have. Oh yeah. It's a video. It's from Twitter.
Oh yeah, that's like the short. I used that in that short I made that time.
Yeah, I think I don't know if it's the same one or they added to it. I can't.
Okay,
I
let
was
me.
just.
Okay,
I didn't listen to it. That's hilarious.
let me. I gotta save it like this. So let me just put it on the here, and then I have to.
Waiting on this jury is like me waiting on to get an answer on my car.
Oh no! So your car's getting the AC checked out, right?
Well, it's waiting on the warranty to approve the repair. It's under warranty. So this is the second repair for the same reason, and they're trying to get pushback on it and parts and things like that. And I'm been frustrated beyond belief.
Mm,
So yeah,
it's
like I
insane.
need it before I go on vacation.
Yeah, it's insane the way we get done anymore. It really, really is. Where did that just go? Okay, I saved it. Whoa. Okay, well, I thought I did. Hang on. Go tell me, what was the name of that Twitter account?
Hold on. Let me see if I didn't lose it.
So when I go to,
Phil Moss.
okay. Oh, I know who that is. Yeah, when I go to Discord to pull anything out of there,
Mm-hmm.
every time there's an issue when I'm streaming.
That's crazy.
It is. I have to go about it a certain way. It's, oh, I don't think that's the right guy. Hold on.
I'll repost it and you can just go to mine and pull it. I reposted it.
Okay.
We need a good laugh.
Yeah. It's at True Crime Butterfly, right? You didn't change your at.
Butterfly 71, remember?
You did. That's right. You only changed. Yeah, you're still under. That's right. Oops. That's right. I forgot. There you are. Okay. Every time I look at it, girl, I'm like, so I made a short using part of this once. You can find it on the channel. It's classic. Okay, this is when Jennifer Coffindaffer used her FBI skills and she went and stalked the neighbor's house of was it 34 Fairview? Yes. And so she's trying to take a picture over towards the flagpole guys. So what, did he do something to this video? Let's see. Oh, a bird? Okay. Let me go. Let me. Where is that short that I made? Because, okay, our friend,
I shared it a long time ago, but I can't. I think it was a TikTok actually.
the one that I made.
No.
Oh,
I think
that.
it's that
Yeah.
one on your channel.
Yeah.
The original one.
I made, okay, so DB out of the Delphi community made some fake Google searches. And the fake Google searches were allegedly from Rick Allen, because at the time they were trying to decide if they were going to admit the Google searches into the court or not. And of course, Judge Gull said, yeah, they can come in. And it was, what movies Rick Allen was searching and whatever, Google, all his Google searches. And they were fake, the ones that DB posted. So Jennifer Coffindaffer, somebody sent them to her. So somebody sent them to Jennifer Coffindaffer, like, I don't know, DM'd them to her, I guess. And she never tried to vet them. She didn't check them out. She literally ran out of breath running to YouTube to go live to present these Google searches. And she was holding up her cell phone. And I'm not trying to make fun of her, because somebody on the YouTube, like right after I started my channel, they're like, I didn't realize you made fun of people. I'm going to unsub. I'm like, oh, well, bye. So anyway, she runs to YouTube and she goes live, and she's telling everybody who will listen that she's found the Google searches that were Rick Allen's that are coming into court. And she holds up her phone and she shows them. And one of the officers involved was named Holman. And one of the searches was, is Holman a real cop? And she's like having a field day thinking it's all real. And it was so comical. It was just like, what are you doing with this information? It's not misinformation, disinformation, flat out unvetted. I mean,
Right, unvetted. I mean, such a good FBI agent she
for an
is.
FBI agent that, is bringing the knowledge, and I'm supposed to believe over everybody else on the social media platforms here. You just kind of made yourself look a little ridiculous. And I can't find what I made. I don't know where it's at. But so I used part of that with her going live about that and combined it with that little visit over to 38 Fairview. Like, if that's what an FBI agent runs around doing, could you imagine?
Well, we've all seen her Twitter posts about this case and a lot of cases.
A lot of cases. Right? I usually leave her post alone. I don't troll her too hard. If I ever make a comment, it's like a
general, yeah.
It's a nice Southern, what are you thinking comment, but she's
bless
never,
her heart.
Yeah, she's never blocked me or came at me or most of the time she doesn't address me. You know what I mean? We don't.
Yeah.
I don't
even comment. She's not. Yeah.
I laugh at her. I mean, even all of her Sebastian Rogers coverage, man, it goes that. Oh, Bev's coming back in the courtroom, guys. Hold on. It's probably time to go for the day.
But we still got 10 minutes, so.
All right, let me get this up here really quick. I'm trying to go fast. All right, she hasn't talking yet. They just took the camera off of her and went toward the ceiling.
Oh, Lord.
Okay, let's listen in. I'll mute out while they talk.
Court is back in session and 80 seated.
All right, jurors, I know you want to go home, so it's been a long day for everybody. I have to give you those same cautions. Please do not discuss this case with anyone. Do not do any independent research or investigation into the case. If you happen to see, hear, or read anything about this case, please disregard it and let us know. Be careful with your social media use. We know you've all been working really hard and we appreciate it. So please just clear your heads. Don't think about this case at all as best you can. And we'll see you tomorrow morning when everybody's fresh to start again. Thank you.
All rise for the court, please.
Did she say tomorrow morning?
Yes, tomorrow's Wednesday, remember?
Shit. Shit.
Thursday is the holiday.
How many times am I
So
gonna do
hopefully
that?
tomorrow.
You're gonna have to like message me in the morning. Go, hey, chick. Today's
Happy
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
For real. Oh my God. So man, another
So
day.
frustrating.
I mean, what in the world are they debating back there?
Who
That's
knows?
so hard to get to for them. I don't know, guys. I don't know.
I don't see her making. She didn't make it any easier by confusing them more. I'm sure.
Yeah,
By
maybe
this
right with
last,
yeah,
yeah.
those questions that they asked and the vague answers that she gave, especially on that one.
Hmm.
Are they hung up on manslaughter versus involuntary manslaughter?
I don't know.
Because those two questions would pertain to the questions that they asked, right?
Hmm.
Almost, especially when they're looking at what point level to consider and things of this nature. There's a lot. I don't know. I feel like they might be hung up on that a little bit. Makes me wonder
Yeah.
if there's any holdouts for real on even considering a car accident. I don't know. So we'll have
Mhm.
to go at it again tomorrow. We will be on verdict watch again in the morning, guys. As usual, I always have. I'm always up when they, before they go back to court in the mornings. So I'm always checking, and I had that up. I will be setting up the live here in a little while for tomorrow's Koberger hearing, and we may go live a little bit earlier to have a little discussion before that to kind of refresh ourselves on why we're there. Actually, got to go through that document a little bit, keep an eye on the verdict, and then we'll see where we stand with the Karen Reed verdict after the hearing. Now, here's the dilemma. If I'm in the middle of the Brian Koberger hearing and we get a verdict in the Karen Reed case, I don't want to stop the Koberger live to go live with that reading. I'll just have to take it for what it was, right? I mean, you know what I mean? I can announce it during the hearing. Hey guys, there's a verdict, and tell you what the verdict is, because you're going to be looking. You're going to be just like me. You're going to be curious and watching. So,
Maybe we'll get
and then,
lucky and have a verdict before the hearing
yeah, and if we
instead
get
of
a
wasted
verdict,
time.
right, and if we do get a verdict during the hearing, we can still have our conversation after the hearing about the verdict, right? Because
Right.
God knows, Lord knows, we're going to have a lot to say either way once that verdict comes down. So I
Hmm.
appreciate you guys for hanging in there with us and knowing the coverage that we do here and how we've been, because we've actually snuck in Koberger hearings in between Vallow and Karen Reed. So here we are again doing, so we're good. We got this. We
Right.
just, so it is what it is. But I do want to cover that hearing tomorrow. So depending on the timing of everything, we'll see how everything works out. Butterfly, thank you for joining me, and hopefully you can come back
Thank
and
you for
join me
having me.
tomorrow. Yeah, I'd love to have you back, and to especially to talk about this stuff with me. You've been watching it just like I have, just like Chad has. You guys, thank you for coming in and being a part of the conversation, because I'd love to hear what you guys have to say.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, I do appreciate. Thank you, Forrest, for always coming in and being here for us. All right, you guys. Well, with that said, I'm going to let you go. Go catch your Karen Reed updates this evening and see what everybody's saying. I don't know where I'll be at tonight. I don't know what I'll be doing later. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Well, have a good night, everyone.
yeah, y'all have a good evening,
Keep
and
off.
I'll see you back. Keep your notifications on, because I'll set up the live here in just a little while, and we'll go and see you tomorrow for the Koberger hearing. You guys have a good one.
Bye.
Thank you all for watching.